All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us again here on Walks on Wall Street. It is March 29th, 2023. It is a Wednesday. It's about 8:55 p.m. and we are reporting live yet again from East 31st Street, Madison Avenue. Hopefully you all are having a great week. It's already the middle of the week. Now, the stock market had a pretty good day today. Not only the S&P 500, but the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the NASDAQ all showed pretty extreme gains today. The S&P 500 finally breaking back above that key 4,000 psychological level, closing at 4,027. Also, additionally, I'd like to note that we are now back above all major moving averages. So the 50-day moving average and the 200-day. The S&P 500 closed above the 50-day moving average again today, which is good. That shows progress. If we look at the NASDAQ, composite here, we closed 11,926. We were up almost 2% on the day, or about 210 points. Now, the NASDAQ is leading, I should say, the market higher. Quite to the contrary of what was pretty much the story for the entirety of 2022, with the Dow Industrials actually leading the market and outperforming. We're starting to see a lot of these tech-heavy stocks show gains and show performance again. Now, the NASDAQ is trading well above the 50-day and the 200-day again, and I would like to point out a little bit of a technical indicator here. Now, very seldom on the live stream do we talk about technicals in the market, but I think it's important. I tend to be more so a fundamentalist of analyzing specific valuations of companies, but it is very critical to also put weighting and credence on some of the technicals. So we just went over, as of the past couple of trading days here on the NASDAQ, something that's called a golden cross, which is when the 50-day moving average cuts back above the 200-day moving average. And usually this signals a very bullish sign and a brand new bull trend. For some context, the last time this happened, when the 50-day moving average broke back above the 200, was in June of 2020, when we were coming out of the COVID pandemic. So if you pull up your charting software, whatever software you use, it could be a Bloomberg terminal, it could be tradingview.com. I would recommend tradingview.com because it's free. Pull up a chart of the equity index, the NASDAQ, and just put a 50-day moving average and 200-day moving average on the screen, and you'll sort of see what I'm talking about. So if you look at February of 2022, that is when we had the bearish cross, which is called the death cross, where you have the 50-day cutting back below the 200-day moving average. And ever since we had that, the NASDAQ went on to decline about 30%. Okay. Now, we've since bottomed. We put in a bottom on the NASDAQ at 10,000, that big round 10,000 psychological level, on October 13th, 2022. It was actually a Thursday where we bottomed. And since October until now, March 29th of 2023, we just now have that 50-day curling back above the 200. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, or the Dow 30. The Dow is being a little bit of a laggard here. However, price action did manage to fight to break back above the 200-day, but we are still running into resistance right at that 50-day moving average. So all of the major equity indices are trading above major moving averages except the Dow 30, which is only trading above the 200 and trading below the 50. Major piece of news, everybody. If you take a look at the VIX, we are going to be talking about that today. Massive movements in the VIX. We are now trading below 20, closing at 19.11 on the day. The VIX was lower to the tune of almost 5% today. Now, if you think about all of the craziness that has been going on, from all of the banking insolvencies to Silicon Valley Bank to Silvergate to UBS acquisition of Credit Suisse, never in a million years would anybody think that the VIX would actually be in free fall here, crashing below 20, which is actually a bullish sign for equities. Now, I would like to turn your attention to March 13th. Now, on March 13th, we very briefly had a little bit of a blow off in the VIX all the way to 31. Just a tad, it was about 50 cents short of 31. 30.54, but ever since there, we've been really crashing here in the VIX, and that is actually a bullish sign for equities. We'll talk about that. But the main topic for tonight, everybody, okay, we now have additional housing data that has been posted by the National Association of Realtors as they released their pending home sales. Okay, so we're going to talk about pending home sales today. And while we're doing this lesson, or I should say, while we're doing the stream today, talking about pending home sales, keep in the back of your mind what we were talking about yesterday, okay, when the Case-Shiller, S&P Global Case-Shiller Index came out. And remember what we talked about in relation to the sort of bifurcated market that we have here, in relation to price declines on the West Coast as opposed to the really stark contrast on the East Coast. So just keep that in mind. And then we'll end the day talking about semiconductors, and we'll briefly touch on junk bonds. All right, that's all I have for you guys. It's going to be a pretty slow night. Hopefully the rain holds off. Let me throw on my backpack and we will get started. Hey, Brian is here. Shatoya Davis, British Gray, Aaron, welcome. Muhammad is here. Roy S. 21 Awesome. Julia, what's up? Steph UH, Ron McAllister, War Walker from Miami, Florida. Always a pleasure to see you. You know, I'm going back to Miami on Friday. I'm pretty excited about it, I'm not going to lie. It's going to be nice. I'm going to be working a lot, though, while I'm there. I'll probably be there for a week. But then I'll be back in New York. So let's head out. It's good to see everybody today. Sabrina Fair, I see you. Hey, Dan Zhang, what's up? Good to see you, Dan. Thanks for joining us. Let me just lock up here. Here we have the WeWork office. Now, a little bit unrelated, but did anybody see the very famous building, the Flatiron Building in New York? I think somebody supposedly bought it for like, what, 130 million or something like that? Some crazy number. But I guess he's not making the down payment on the building. Did anybody hear about that? I haven't really been following it, but I guess there was a pretty large auction, really big bid for the building. And this gentleman that really nobody knows about, won the bid, and so far he didn't make the down payment on it. But just wondering if anybody in the chat saw that, but we'll wait till we get downstairs. Wow, Hawaii's is 109. Hey, how's it going, man? Take care. Oh no, it's not raining. It's pretty clear. Not bad. All right, everybody, here we are at ground floor level. We are on the corner of East 31st Street and Madison Avenue. We're going to be heading uptown today. I know I said I was going to head downtown on last night's live stream, but I may have to cut this stream short. I got to be up very early in the morning. Tomorrow's going to be a very busy day for me. It's going to be a very action-packed day. I have to prepare a lot of things. I'm going to be running around the city pretty much all day. So we don't have time to go downtown tonight. However, Thursday nights are better nights to go downtown in my opinion anyway, so just stay tuned for tomorrow. Hey, Lemonade. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks so much. Kirby says, are there any truths to the Citadel allegations? What are the Citadel allegations? If you want to enlighten me, I haven't heard about it. Is it anything different than the, just the whole payment for order flow thing? Because the only, I guess, sort of allegations, quote unquote, and those aren't really even allegations. It's just, during the pandemic. Real quick, everybody, check this out. We got to give this a rating. What do you guys think? Thoughts? Out of 10, what do we got? I really like the color scheme. Now, it reminds me of the New York Mets or the New York Knicks, but I'm not too sure why they have this color scheme up tonight. It looks really good. It looks beautiful. Empire State Building, one of my favorite Art Deco buildings of all time. Probably the Empire and the Chrysler Building are the top two in New York, but it looks awesome tonight. I don't know. Maybe it's lit up for baseball. I'm not a big baseball fan, right? I very seldom follow it, but I'm going to make it a point to make it a goal this year to get a little bit more involved. I kind of want to go see some Yankee games, maybe go see a Mets game or something like that. I just never really have time to, but I live in one of the greatest cities on earth, and I never really take advantage of going to see all the really cool sporting events. So, I don't know. I'm going to make that a point to do that this year. We'll see. Hey, David S., good to see you. What's up? Ryan Beck. Hope you're well. Oh, David S.'s opening day is tomorrow. Okay. That's probably why it's lit up. Very cool. But yeah, in terms of the Citadel thing, during the pandemic, all of the nonsense was going on as it relates to the meme stock stuff. And I've been very outspoken to stay away from all that nonsense. And there was a lot of people, criticizing Citadel and Robinhood, which is the discount broker-dealer, which I'm not that big of a fan of, in relation to payment for order flow. But I think what a lot of people don't realize, wow, the flowers are starting to bloom. This looks beautiful. Check this out, guys. Winter is officially behind us, thank God. Not a big winter guy. And on the bright side, check this out. They paved 34th Street. They did a pretty good job. I never in a million years thought I would ever see 34th Street without any potholes, but I think the city did a really good job. Brand new street. But here's what I think people don't understand, and not to sort of go down the rabbit hole of payment for order flow. The reason why we have quote-unquote free trades, right? So all the discount brokers like the Schwabs and the like, and Robinhood, the only way they're able to offer zero commissions on the buy and the sell is because of payment for order flow, okay? And a lot of people have been saying, oh, the reason why, I'm not making money in the stock market, or the reason why I'm not making money in investing is because of payment for order flow. That couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, I have no issue with any sort of quantitative firm, scraping a couple pennies from me on the bid. I mean, if the reason why you're not making money in the investment business is because your fill may be like a penny, the difference may be like a penny or two than it should, then you probably shouldn't be buying the stock in the first place, in my view. But yeah, I mean, if you want to do away with payment for order flow, then have fun, paying a ridiculous amount in your commissions. I mean, it's not like Robinhood is saying, hey, we're going to give you guys free trades out of the goodness of our heart. I mean, it's a business, but that's how they make the commission-free trading, is through payment for order flow. So they route your orders to different quantitative firms or market makers on Wall Street to execute the trade. And then obviously they'll take a little bit of a spread on that. So if that's the Citadel thing, that's the only thing I'm aware of. Hey, Dutchman is here. Smee Media, what's up? Jafet Perez, good to see you, my friend. Edward Adams, this time you got to check out Park Avenue around 432 for the blooming tulips. Did they bloom today? We may have to do that. Let's go to Herald Square real quick. We're right outside the Empire State Building. And then I think we're going to go back to Park Avenue because I want to check that out. For those of you who don't know, just to give you a little bit of an update on what Edward Adams is saying. Every single year during the spring on Park Avenue, they plant these really beautiful tulips, and it looks amazing. So when they bloom, we'll check that out. This is one of the flagship Starbucks Roastery Reserve stores. Now, did anybody see Howard Schultz testifying? I think Bernie Sanders was asking Howard Schultz some questions, and Howard Schultz actually kind of snapped, which is very out of character for him, right? He's usually very poised, calm, cool, and collected. But essentially, Howard Schultz, and you guys know I admire this guy very much. I would highly, highly suggest, if anybody's interested in business or entrepreneurship, go on Amazon, the used books section, and you should buy all of the Howard Schultz books. Every single book that he's put out about Starbucks, how he built that business, you should buy it and you should read it. But he sort of cracked, and he was like, look, all of this demonization of billionaires, about how billionaires are evil and we're so horrible. He's like, you guys got to cut that out. For anybody who knows the story of Howard Schultz, I mean, he grew up very, very poor in subsidized housing right here in Brooklyn, New York. So he did not grow up wealthy. He came from a very, very, very poor Jewish community in Brooklyn, New York. He's completely self-made, and yeah, he's worth multiple billions of dollars. But through the creation of his massive wealth, he's made shareholders ridiculous amounts of money. I mean, Starbucks is one of the best performing stocks in history. He's also made employees extremely wealthy. If you've read the last book he put out, it's really good, by the way. It's almost like a full biography of his life. And Starbucks was one of the first companies, right? Like, you think about these quick service restaurant companies, to offer their employees free college education. right? Free college tuition. I believe it's through the University of Phoenix. Secondly, they offer employees stock-based compensation, right? So stock-based comp for even the baristas. So if you think about, if you were a barista at Starbucks from like 2008 and onward, and you held on to that stock, I mean, you could very well be worth, just $250,000 or more. Sometimes there's been stories of baristas who've been with Starbucks since day one that are multi-millionaires due to the stock-based compensation. So, I just was wondering if anybody saw that. I saw a couple clips circulating around Twitter, and I think we need to, as a society, we need to pick and choose our battles, because Howard Schultz is not the guy to come after like that. So, I don't know, just thought I'd put those 2 cents in there. This is Macy's. We are now at Herald Square on the corner of 34th Street and 6th Avenue. Mike C says I need to see it. I think I retweeted it, Mike, on my Twitter. It was really good. You could tell he was very shaken about it. And as he was explaining his position, Bernie Sanders was cutting him off. He's like, no, you're over time. You're over your time. But I mean, look, the benefits that the average Starbucks employee gets is just almost like ridiculous. And I mean that in a good way, right? Offering healthcare, health insurance, free college tuition. So if you were, a barista at Starbucks, you could get a free college education if you wanted to. You could get healthcare. You could get stock-based compensation. You can't say that about some of these other companies like McDonald's, even Walmart and some of the other companies. So I think it's important that they pick and choose their battles wisely. Hey, I see Melanie is here. It says, Tom, I saw it. The prob was more about the union busting and the shafting employees who tried to join a union. Yeah, and that's exactly what it's about, right? But the point is, if you look at, hold on, let me cross the bike lane here. If you look at what the job is, right, of a barista, and you look at the benefits that Howard Schultz and Starbucks is offering them, I think that is like top-notch benefits. I mean, some, not to say real jobs, but let's say an office job in corporate America don't offer those type of benefits, right? So I think, it's like them reaching. I'm not a huge fan of, unionization, and I sort of see where Howard Schultz is coming from, but it's not like they're working in horrible conditions. They're getting free college, they're getting stock-based compensation, and they're getting healthcare, which I think is fantastic. So again, I'm more along the lines of, I think they're going after the wrong quote-unquote billionaire. I think if there's one billionaire that's doing it right and treating their employees right, I think the one guy is probably Howard Schultz. I think that's sort of where I'm coming from. But Harper is here. Good to see you. Welcome. Chip gives education health insurance. What is Chip, Harper? Hey, Keith is here. Good to see you. Welcome. Hey, custom built American fire trucks. Good to see you. Evan Weeks is here. Says good evening all. Good evening. I guess since we're here at Macy's, I'll show you guys the windows, and then we'll sort of get started. But I think the main topic for tonight, which sort of piggybacks on our topic from last night, is the housing market. So we did hear from the National Association of Realtors yet again today as they released their pending home sales. And pending home sales actually rose now for the third straight month in a row, up 0.8% from January, as we're standing right outside of the Macy's Flower Show. And this really coincides with a drop in interest rates. Now, we've been talking about this and pretty much covering this almost every day on the channel. If you look at the trajectory of the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage, we have declined significantly, especially just over the last couple of weeks. So I wouldn't be surprised if next month's pending home sales numbers are actually higher than what we got this month. But now the average 30-year fixed, I think, is below 6.5%, or maybe like 6.6%. So this is spurring a lot of buying activity in the housing market. But I think more notable from the pending home sales report that we got today, and yesterday we got the Case-Shiller home price index, is this bifurcated market that we're having, where we have such divergence between the West Coast and the East Coast, right? You've had, if we just quickly review what we talked about yesterday, you have double-digit declines in terms of sales price, so the price of the home, in places like San Francisco, places like San Diego. But on a year-over-year basis, you have double-digit sales increases or price increases in places like Tampa, Florida, Miami, Florida, Atlanta, and even very strong high single-digit price gains in places like New York and Boston. So we're seeing this division, this huge division between the West Coast and the East Coast, and today's pending home sales report really exposes that and shows that in even bigger of a light. So I think if you guys type exclamation point pending, so PENDING, exclamation point pending, in the chat, the Nightbot should drop the report from the National Association of Realtors for pending home sales. Now, if you look at a month, this is interesting. So if you look at on a month-over-month basis, contract signings rose in 3 of the 4 main U.S. regions, but it actually declined in one of them. Now, based upon what we talked about, could anybody take a wild guess? And we'll make a right here. We'll actually walk towards Penn Station. Does anybody want to take a guess at the only region out of the main 4 regions in the United States where we had contract signings decline? Does anybody want to take a guess? Hey, Robert A., good to see you. Nina is here. Thanks so much for joining us. Mike Ceases hasn't been good the last 12 months for the West Coast. Agreed. Ron McAllister is here. Good to see you. SME Media says Midwest. No, Midwest is doing good. Yes, just in the West. You're correct. The West region. So you had the Northeast, the pending home sales index up on a month-over-month basis. You had the Midwest up on a month-over-month basis. You had the South up on a month-over-month basis. But the only, I should say, major region where we had declines was in the West. Now, this is really, really glaring divergence here that I think we should pay attention to. Now, here's the million-dollar question. The million-dollar question is this. Is the West Coast, or I should rephrase that actually. I should say, should we use the West Coast as a potential leading indicator for what's to come to the East? Or do we think that based upon the fact that so many people are leaving the West Coast, and it's not just California, right? It's some of the states in the Pacific Northwest as well. They're leaving for the Midwest, where it's a little bit cheaper. They're leaving for, Southern Florida, where the weather's a little bit better. Or do we think this has some staying power, and we're going to continue to see those big price declines and pending home sales declines in the West, as opposed to the Midwest and the East? Hey, Paul Medes, what's up? SME Media says, as California goes, so goes the nation, as they say. That's a really good quote. Yeah, I mean, California, if you think about it, California alone, its GDP is that of, multiple nations across the world. So California is an economic powerhouse. So I think that's a pretty good way to put it. Maybe you're right. Nina is here, says, yes, Tom, many leaving California again in the latest reports. Hey, Sunshine NYC is here. What's up? Thank you for joining us. Everybody, this is the corner of West 34th Street and 7th Avenue. Now, there's a ton of interesting new development that's going on here. It is called the Penn Project. So as you can see, all of these brand new high-rises here, they're literally being built on top of the old Penn Station. I actually took you guys down here maybe about a month ago. So there's a brand new Long Island Railroad terminal. This is aside from the Moynihan train station, by the way, so two completely different things. But they've raised the ceiling heights. They're probably about 20-foot ceilings. They're really gorgeous down there. Unfortunately, the internet's not good, so I don't think I could take you guys down there tonight. But there's also going to be sort of like a mixed-use building. There's going to be office space. There's going to be retail. I even think there may be condominiums. Let's actually cross. I'll give you guys one more shot of the Empire State Building here. Hey, Beacon, New York says California is strong on tourism with all of their cities. Good to see you, Beacon. Chinook Winds, welcome. Evan Weeks says I would be very interested to see a breakdown of rural versus suburban versus urban real estate rather than regional statistics. I don't think that tells the tale. That's interesting. Now, I think that's a really interesting point. Now, in my view, I think that people, especially who are later on, I should say further along down the line in their careers, you know, who may be at the VP level, the associate level, you know, managing director, depending on, you know, which, if you work in finance or you work in consulting, whatever. I think a lot of those people are choosing to, you know, maybe even take a little bit of a pay cut to move to places like the Midwest or the South where they could, you know, start a family, right? It's very difficult to start a family in a place like New York City because it's very expensive. So even if you could take, you know, a 10% pay cut, right? A 10% pay cut on a, you know, a 250 target comp in the Midwest is going to get you really, really far, right? You could probably buy a pretty nice house on a lot of land. Your kids can run around and play outside and have a backyard. So I think that's what people are after, and I think the pandemic really taught us that. This is one of the newer entrances to Penn Station. So if you go right down here, unfortunately they still have all the scaffolding up, but you guys can kind of see it here. So once you take the escalators down, this is the main Long Island Railroad terminal. You could also get the subway. I think the 123 AC trains go here as well, but it's a little bit of a walk. But if you guys want to know where I go after we do the streams, it's pretty much right down here. Sometimes we go out of the brand new Grand Central Madison. But this is Penn 2. Also Madison Square Garden. This is going to look really, really nice once this is complete. Meg Lowe says I could afford to live in New Jersey. A lot of New Yorkers are moving out to New Jersey for more space. Justin S. says my new neighbors are from New York City, moved to upstate New York near Syracuse. Wow. Let's wait for this guy to go by. Now that's a big move. I mean, think about that for a moment. So Justin says his neighbors moved from New York City to Syracuse. Now, I mean, I can't stand the snow and the cold. I could never do that. I think, you know, it's just my opinion. I would fall into a severe depression if I lived up there. I couldn't do it anymore. But that's interesting. But if you think about it, you could probably get a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom home in the suburbs of Syracuse in places like, you know, in a really nice town too. So maybe in like the Finger Lakes region near Skinny Atlas. The house is probably going to be like 3,600 square foot, maybe like 4,000 square feet. And, you know, compare that to a 1-bedroom apartment, you know, in Kips Bay or something like that, where it's going to be under 1,000 square feet. It's probably going to be like 600 square foot. It's going to be probably over $1 million. So your money definitely goes a lot further in upstate New York. That's a really interesting comment there. Yeah, David S's Liverpool, New York as well is a pretty big suburb. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting places up there. Now, maybe this will revitalize the economy in upstate New York, because for those non-New Yorkers that are watching, oh, look at this. This is brand new, guys. So just so you know, this is the first time I'm seeing this. So it appears to be a big LCD screen right here on the brand new Penn Station project. This place is going to look amazing when it comes down. But look, historically in New York State, right, downstate New York, which includes the tri-state area, I'm talking about, the 5 boroughs in New York City, Nassau, Suffolk County, have really been the economic driver of the state of New York, right, generally speaking. Upstate New York, specifically places like Syracuse, have been, very economically depressed in comparison to a major city like New York. So maybe all this remote work stuff will attract people to, start families, buy homes, and, maybe revitalize and start to spend money in upstate New York. Maybe. Now, we talked about the Finger Lakes region. If I was ever to buy property in upstate New York, it would probably be right on the Finger Lakes. My favorite one is Skinny Atlas Lake. Very clean. It's one of the cleanest lakes in the world. I think that's where I would buy if I was looking there. Hey, Brad's Brain says, if you want to move, do it. I didn't do so for cost of living, but to be around family nonetheless. KC to Houston was a big move. You can do it if you want to, Brad. Yeah. Hey, Brad, how is the move going? How are you liking Houston so far? Meg Lowe says Miami is high crime area, plus rents are very expensive. Rents are very expensive. The short guy, good to see you. Welcome. So let's try to walk over to the Hudson Yards neighborhood if it's not going to be too windy. I could already feel the wind picking up. But yeah, I think that's the biggest trend that we're seeing in the housing market so far is the Midwest and the East Coast is holding up as opposed to the West, which is really kind of crazy. And again, I think you have multiple things at play, and we sort of talked about this yesterday. Now, I think you have a magic elixir of things that happened on the West Coast. You look at cities like Silicon Valley, you look at cities like San Francisco, cities close to the Valley and the like. This is right behind Madison Square Garden, by the way. This is actually where all the players go in, so all the team buses and such. Now, San Francisco, people go there to start tech companies. It's a very entrepreneurial city. It's almost like the innovation driver of America, I sort of view it as, in my view, right? I have nothing against San Francisco, but, if I'm a startup founder, if I'm a tech founder, why should I have a crazy overhead expense of paying rent for an office space there, cramming everybody into like a 3-bedroom apartment, and my share is probably still $2,000 a month, when now I could work remotely and do things from other places and probably be more productive. So I think the pandemic has really exposed that. Now, a city like New York, yes, it was susceptible to the pandemic, obviously, but I think our economy is a little bit more diverse. Wouldn't you say? I think New York is more geared towards finance, consulting, tech as well. Obviously, you have the largest tech companies here like Facebook, Google. I think just bought one of the most expensive pieces of real estate in New York City. But you have more diversity and choice of work. It's not just 100% tech. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Hey, Kerry is here. This is absolutely right, Tom. People are opening startups in the bad part of San Francisco. Interesting. Guys, check this out. This is the beautiful Moynihan Train Hall. This is right outside of Madison Square Garden. I'll quickly once again show you MSG. We have our friend Billy Joel there. You can see that picture there. Hey, Charles D says people migrating from California to Texas. B. Cruz is here in Los Angeles. The foothills are the most green, lots of trees. The closer you get to the mountains, the higher the cost of the homes, is B. Cruz. Nina's is great seafood at San Francisco, incomparable to other cities, and bridge cities is beautiful. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Dan Zhang's San Francisco is where you have your car windows smashed. I heard about that. I was watching like such a bizarre local news segment in San Francisco, and yeah, it was just bizarre. I mean, they parked like what is it called, like a bait car on the side of the road in San Francisco, and literally within 5 minutes, you have people coming up and smashing the windows and taking, the burner phone that they put in the car. I mean, you can't really live like that. So I think people are moving with their feet. It's interesting. But anyway, look at the detail and look at the architecture on the beautiful Moynihan train hall. Now, the front of this train hall is actually still an operational post office. I'm so glad they kept it like that. But this was originally, the whole entire thing was a post office. I wish I could give you guys a walking tour inside, but every time we do, unfortunately, the internet dies. So if we want to take just a very quick, again, deep dive into the pending home sales report, if we just take it by region, right? So there's 4 main regions, as we talked about. You have the Northeast, you have the Midwest, you have the South, and then you have the West. So on a month-over-month basis, the strongest region was actually the Northeast, right here where we are in the Northeast. Pending home sales index rose 6.5% on a month-over-month basis to 72.5. However, if we look at a year-over-year basis, that is a 17% decline year-over-year, which makes sense, right? If you think about March of 2022, just think about where interest rates were, right? And this is why I always say it is so critical to have a really, really solid fundamental understanding of the bond market, because the bond market is quite literally the cost and the price of money, right? So it makes sense. So on a month-over-month basis, you're seeing improvement as we sort of come out of this major housing slump. But on a year-over-year basis, if you look at pending home sales, still down significantly in the Northeast. Now, if you look at the Midwest, we also rose about 0.4% to 84.9. However, again, on a year-over-year basis, we did drop 16.5% in the Midwest. But again, the Northeast and the Midwest leading on a month-over-month basis. Hey, 3T3 says people are leaving big cities. It's been a pattern that has been growing crazily. Yeah, I mean, 3T3, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think that's also good for people. Now, I used to spend all of my time in Manhattan, right? Big city. I love Manhattan. I'm here all the time. But ever since I bought my place in Miami, and let me just, as a quick disclaimer here, it's not like I live in the boondocks in Miami. I live in suburbia. It's a lot of space. I have a backyard and I have a front yard. When I'm there, I feel better. It's something about just being out, in nature, not being on top of people, like crowded up like cattle. It honestly is better for at least my mental health. Anyway, if I could just, dip out of the city for a little bit, go to my place in Miami, ride around on the bike, ride to the beach, get out in nature. I don't think humans are meant to be stacked up in a city all the time, right? Maybe not 24/7, maybe a couple months out of the year, but I don't think it's healthy all of the time just to be, in the city forever. At least that has been my experience. And maybe the reason why I feel that way is because I'm so used to being in the city. So the moment I'm not in the city, I have a huge, mental shift, maybe potentially. So I don't know. I think the pandemic and remote work and hybrid work has allowed people to pick and choose where they want to live, especially people with young families. Man, the wind is really picking up here, guys. here we have 34th Street, Penn Station. I'll give you guys another shot of the Empire State Building. Hey, Ryan Beck is here, says Tampa is nice. Agreed. Dan Zhang says, Tom, have you seen the crazy hike that Lululemon just had today? What do you mean about hike? Are you talking about the stock price? Because Lululemon reported earnings yesterday, big Canadian company, and their forward guidance was very, very good. So I think it was up 13% after hours. I wanted to take you guys to the Hudson Yards, but there's like a huge wind tunnel that is barreling down 33rd Street here. And I think you guys are just going to hear wind noise the entire time. So I think we'll head back to Park Avenue. But if you look in the distance, this is the Hudson Yards development in New York. Quite beautiful. JP says my mental is definitely a lot better in the city. Yeah, maybe. I mean, everybody has their own personal preference. Now, I love the city. I'll always be here. I'll never leave. But it's just nice to get out of the city every once in a while, I think. NBA Elias says, Tom, the next crazy Florida real estate boom will be in the Panhandle. Maybe. Maybe. Now, I'm actually very, very surprised at the resiliency of the Miami and Fort Lauderdale markets. Now, I thought they would have declined a lot more, but they're actually holding pretty steady, which has actually surprised me. But everybody, if we move on to the last two regions for the pending home sales report, you'll see the South. So the South pending home sales rose about 0.7% to 99.3. However, on a year-over-year basis, again, this is a 21.7% drop. So there's obviously a direct correlation between interest rates going up and pending home sales going down, or just sales transactions overall. So I think since we had about a month of a little bit of relief in terms of interest rates, I think that has sparked a little bit more deal flow. This is one of the famous hot dog guys, carts that you always see. Now, I wouldn't recommend eating at any of these, but I think you guys know the story as to why. But right ahead of us is the famous New Yorker hotel. The TikTok diner is in the bottom, but if you're familiar with the City University in New York or CUNY, I think they actually have some of the dorms for the students right in the New Yorker hotel. So let's say if you're an out-of-towner, right, you're not from New York, and you go to Baruch or you go to John Jay College or really any of the CUNY school system, and you don't want to rent an apartment for yourself, the dormitories are actually in the New Yorker hotel, which is kind of cool. So your living experience is in a hotel for college, which is kind of crazy to think about. Hey, Felix is here. Felix, long time no see. I hope you're well, man. Says, hey, Tom, how is it going? I hope you're doing well. Look, things are going good on my end. We're just hanging out on 34th Street and 8th Avenue, looking at the Empire State Building, which I think is lit up for the opening day of the Mets, which is tomorrow, according to some people in the chat. The Mighty Bull is here. Good to see you. Welcome. GGNYC, I see Karina Thompson and Blues Writer. The Celtics says, love the rural setting. Too cramped up in the city, I would go crazy. Yeah, it's nice to get out every once in a while, right? It's nice to get out of the city every once in a while. That's why oftentimes in the summer, you'll see a lot of people who live in Manhattan, they'll spend some time, out east on Long Island in the Hamptons, places like Sag Harbor and the like, which is nice. It's kind of a nice release. But lastly, everybody, then we have the West. Okay, so the West is the only major regional section of the United States that had pending home sales decline on a month-over-month basis. So pending home sales declined 2.4% in the West to a reading of about 64.6. That is down 28.4% year over year. So, that rounds out the pending home sales report. Now, once again, I would highly advise each and every one of you to download the report yourself and study it and go over it. So once again, if you type !pending PENDING in the chat. The Nightbot will drop the link to the National Association of Realtors pending home sales report. Now, the last thing I'd like to say about that is to explain really briefly why it's important to look at these data sets. Now, oftentimes on the live stream, we'll talk about the importance of looking at leading economic indicators, the importance of looking at coincident economic indicators, and lastly, looking at lagging economic indicators. Because when we put all of the pieces to the puzzle together, it'll give us a better, I should say, worldview on market direction. So, pending home sales, usually, well, I shouldn't say usually, all the time we could use this as a leading indicator to existing home sales. Now, existing home sales is another data point that is put out by the National Association of Realtors. We talk about this every month when they release their existing home sales report. Now, based upon the fact that, a home usually goes under contract about a month or two before it's actually sold, so before closing, pending home sales will lead existing home sales, or I should say pending home sales will lead existing home sales by about 2 months. And oh wow, I haven't seen a White Castle in forever in New York. Anybody have a White Castle in their neighborhood? I haven't seen a White Castle in Manhattan in forever. Sorry to get sidetracked there, but that really caught my eye. But the data is correct, right? We're just starting to see for the first time in 12 months. Remember, existing home sales have been in decline for 12 months in a row. We recently broke that trend for 2 months in a row, and now existing home sales have actually been going up for now 2 months in a row, and that coincides with the leading economic indicator of pending home sales. So very important that we keep our eye on this and look at these leading economic indicators to have a better worldview, especially if you're a realtor, right? If you are on top of this data, you are going to have an easier time with helping your clients and helping your buyers and even negotiating deals. So it's extremely, extremely important to be paying attention to this. Hey, Lee is here. Says the nearest WC to your Miami house is in Orlando. Good to see you, Lee. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, I'll be back in Florida on Friday. I'm going to head there on Friday. We're now looking at the New York Times building right ahead of us. Now, a very famous software company has their offices in the New York Times building called Datadog. The ticker symbol is DDOG. Jafet, good to see you. Says VTI dividend was great for me today. Good to see you, Jafet. Kevin Ramsey, thank you so much for being here. David S. says Florida is a great place to visit, not live though. It is very different. Sunshine, New York City says yes, White Castle here. I haven't really seen too many in Manhattan. Haven't really seen too many. I guess we'll cross. Now, usually I don't like walking up 8th Avenue, you guys know that. But I haven't showed you guys 8th Ave in a long, long time. So I think we'll go up right to the New York Times building and then we'll cut further into Midtown Manhattan. Hey, Ren 1018 says, Tom, I think a bull market has started. Well, Ren 1018, that's a pretty good segue, and I think we'll talk about that. Now, I actually jotted down some notes here as I was, really focusing on the market today, and I had a few meetings with some of my friends who run, sizable amounts of money at different firms. And I think the thing that was most glaring to me today is the action in the VIX. So let's talk about that. Now, if you have tradingview.com, it's a free charting software or charting service. I think it would be appropriate to pull up a chart of the VIX as we start to talk about it. So the VIX is now back below 20. I think today it closed at 19.11. Now, on March 13th, this is when we just started to find out about the Silicon Valley Bank collapsing, Signature Bank going under, and Silvergate, right? The VIX, for a brief amount of time, very, very briefly, actually hit over 30. And since March 13th, the VIX has been in free fall, which historically, when you have a major blow off in the VIX, now I'm not saying 30 is a blow off in the VIX, but it's definitely a big spike in the VIX over a 3 to 4 day time period. That is usually the time to go short volatility, historically. So if you short vol, which I think a lot of people made a lot of money shorting volatility over the last 2 weeks, I don't think it's of any surprise that we're seeing markets catch a little bit of a bid here. Since we have the light, let's cross. This is the Port Authority bus terminal. This is the worst location in all of Manhattan. If you're looking to move to New York, maybe if you're looking at real estate to buy or rent an apartment, I truly believe you will always lose money investing in an apartment, a condominium, anything that's in and around the vicinity of the Port Authority bus terminal. You might as well just light your money on fire. This place is the bottom of the barrel in New York. So if you're a real estate investor, if you're looking to move to New York City, I would avoid all areas probably 4 blocks south and 4 blocks north of the Port Authority bus terminal. It'll never get better, this place. So we'll head further in. I think I'll take you guys up Broadway. But this is the New York Times building that we were just talking about. Datadog, which is a very good software company, is in here. But here's the main New York Times sign here. Hey, Billy Johnson, what's up? Says, hey, Tom and everybody. What's up, Billy? Thank you so much. I know, Dan Zhang, I agree. Yeah, and another thing is that, a lot of illegal activity goes through the Port Authority bus terminal. So I don't think an investment would be wise, or, just moving. It's not a place you want to live around Port Authority. But anyway, sort of what Ren 10 said is, we may be in a new bull market. Now, it's possible. Now, let's sort of play devil's advocate here, because think about, and put this in perspective, think about everything that we've just been through over the past 2 weeks with major financial contagion, banks collapsing, people freaking out. Would anybody have thought that a few weeks later the S&P, the NASDAQ, and the Dow would be up? And now the NASDAQ, I think, is actually significantly positive for the year. I think the NASDAQ is up 8 or 9% for the year to date. Now, that is exactly what the market does. The market is designed to confuse you, right? And that is why, in the hedge fund business, there's something called crowdedness. And when everybody is running the same strategy, when everybody is thinking the same exact way, that is consensus thinking. And consensus thinking very, very seldom generates alpha or outperformance. It's actually a recipe for underperforming the benchmark. But contrarian thinking oftentimes leads to outperformance and significant alpha. So I think we need to sort of have an open mind and understand where we are and maybe not fight the market. Because I think we could all agree that if somebody told you, let's say if you just woke up from a coma, right, and they told you in your hospital bed, they said, you know what, we had 4 major banks collapse. This is Times Square up here, by the way. And we had Credit Suisse was bought out by UBS because the bank was failing, right? And if they asked you, Where do you think the market is? Do you think it's higher or lower? I'm assuming everybody would probably say, oh yeah, the market's going to be lower. So the market is exactly designed to do just that, is to trick and deceive the average individual. So maybe Ren 10 is right. Maybe he's right. It's definitely a good contrarian view for sure. Hey, Dutchman, good to see you. Mike sees us be greedy when everybody is fearful, and fearful when everybody is greedy. Great quote. MBA Elias is consumer confidence, which is more reflective of the real economy than it is of the markets. Consumers feel much better about their present situation. This sentiment could lead to a new bull market. Beacon, New York, good to see you. Hey, 45, welcome. Thanks so much. Now let's talk a little bit of technicals here. And when we first started the live stream about an hour ago, I briefly walked you guys through some of the major technicals that we're seeing. Now, very, very seldom do I focus on technicals. Usually I'm, a pure fundamentalist, but usually the technicals will corroborate with the fundamentals. Take a look at the S&P 500. I want you to throw a 50-day and 200-day moving average on the indices. So if you're looking at a daily chart, we'll do this as we're looking at Joe's Pizza. Now, speaking of Miami, they actually opened a Joe's in Miami. I've never been there. Supposedly it's in Wynwood, so maybe I'll have to check it out when I'm there. But this is a very famous pizza shop. It's good. It's a good slice. It's not like the best thing ever. I wouldn't wait in this line for it, I can tell you that. But Joe's is a good spot. It's solid right here on Broadway in Midtown Manhattan as it leads up to Times Square. So 41st and Broadway, between 40th and 41st. But anyway, if you look at the S&P 500, we are now back above the 50-day and 200-day moving average. Now, there's also something called a golden cross that just occurred. And again, this is talking purely technicals here. And a golden cross generally happens at a start of a major, I should say an intermediate term bull trend. It's when the 50-day moving average cuts back above the 200. And you'll notice the last time where we had that sort of price action, and I believe it was in June of 2020. Now, we all know what was going on in June of 2020. That is when the markets were bottoming, emerging from the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. So technicals are telling a story where things are pretty bullish, and also the NASDAQ is now finally leading the markets higher yet again. Now, over all of 2022, the story was that the Dow Jones Industrials were leading, the Dow 30, because you had more conservative, more established blue chip companies in the Dow as opposed to the NASDAQ, which is very tech heavy. A lot of high beta speculative tech stocks in that indice that didn't perform well when we were in a huge quantitative tightening cycle, which we still are, by the way. So the NASDAQ also is going through what you call a golden cross, where the 50-day is now back above the 200, and you're starting to see moving averages curl up here a bit. And if you really look at the indice, we've pretty much gone sideways for about a year. So markets usually, well, if you look at the S&P, and now I'm going to sort of talk out on both sides of my mouth here, the S&P 500 usually bottoms on these major capitulation events, like these big waterfall sell-offs. But it doesn't always have to be that way. I mean, if you look at the stock market where it bottomed, sort of traded in a sideways range in 2015, 2016, you sort of had this sideways choppy action, which is sort of very reminiscent of what we're having now. But major indices have really stopped going down. They've sort of just been chopping around in a range going sideways. Hey, touring different places is joining us. Thank you so much for being here. It's getting cold out. We are now right across the street from Bryant Park, the big building all the way in the back, is the New York Public Library, or the Stephen Schwarzman building. You're now looking down 6th Avenue. You could actually see the very, very top of the spire of One World Trade Center. If you look all the way down the street, it's pretty quiet and clear night. I think they may be closing Bryant Park. Let's see. I think they may tell us to get out of here. We'll see if they do. I haven't taken you guys into Bryant Park in a long time. It's one of my favorite parks. Look at how gorgeous this is. Hey, Joan K. Welcome, Joan. Thank you for being here. Golden City's supply and demand, Tom. Good to see you, Golden City. Wow, look at that. Hey, Zozo Bob, welcome to Bryant Park. We have a beautiful view of One Vanderbilt. But this is my favorite thing about Bryant Park. Take a listen to the water fountain here. Wow, that's really beautiful.
Everybody has to leave.
Have a good night. Well, we made it just in time at the end. Look at this rat. You guys see him? He's hanging out over there. He's crawling around. But real quick before we leave, I want you guys to notice the lawn right here at Bryant Park. So they've taken down all of the stuff at the Winter Village, the Bryant Park Winter Village, and they actually already installed the grass. Now, I think last year we saw them installing the grass live on the stream, but you could see it. It's so perfect. They actually come in here with these huge, I don't even know what they're called. What is it called? Sod? Like they're big slabs of sod, and they essentially just roll it out. But it's pretty nice. And in the distance, you could see the Chrysler building too. I don't know, maybe tomorrow.
We just closed the bar, so unfortunately.
Got it. Awesome, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Maybe tomorrow we'll come back and we will check it out some more. But let's head over to Park Avenue. Because I think there'll also be some, what is it called? Some of the flowers that are in bloom right here. Hey, Vivian is here. Good to see you, Vivian. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Yeah, 45s is only the rats can stay in Bryant Park past 10. True that. Now this is Salesforce Tower. Salesforce is a CRM company, which stands for Customer Relationship Management Software. But they also do a bunch of other things. They recently closed their acquisition of Slack, which was formerly traded under the ticker symbol WORK, or work. We'll make a right here on 42nd Street at the Bank of America Tower. I'm trying to make a move around these guys. But yeah, you know, I think if you look at the technicals and you sort of look at all of the different aspects, usually markets tend to bottom when nobody thinks the market is bottoming. And if you've been watching any of the mainstream financial channels, it's pretty much all gloom and doom and Armageddon. If you've been on Twitter, pretty much everybody is calling for a very, very deep recession and the market to drop another 30 to 40%, which maybe that'll happen. But usually markets tend to do the opposite of consensus. So you have the VIX falling again. We're back below 19. You have the two major equity indices trading back above the 50 and the 200 day, with moving averages curling higher. And additionally, I think the last variable is that you have sufficient dollar weakness. So we'll talk about the Dixie, but first, this is the very famous, I think this is like a $500,000 bathroom, public restroom here at Bryant Park. If anybody's ever been in here, it's really, really nice. It's sort of like being in a hotel lobby of a very fancy 5-star hotel, the Bryant Park public restroom. Hey, Brick Stonewall, what's up? Good to see you. Michael Joseph says, Tom, have you been to Pulte Park? I have not. Says it's a small pocket park between buildings with a nice waterfall on 53rd and 3rd. Oh, I may have 53rd and 3rd. I'm trying to think. Because there's two parks that are similar to that. One of them is right outside of the Sutton Place Synagogue, if anybody's familiar with that. That is gorgeous. I'm not sure if that's the one you're talking about. I'm not sure it is, though. But maybe we'll have to check it out. I'll have to check it out one night. Zozo Bob, good to see you. But guys, check this out, all right? So the Dixie, and this is like classic market psychology right here, as like a contrarian indicator. So does anybody remember the exact date, by the way? I believe it's September 28th of 2022. That is when the Dixie hit an all-time, well, I'm not going to say all-time record high, but a recent record high of 114. Now, the next week, Barron's comes out, and on the front page of Barron's, and I posted about this on my Twitter page, by the way, if you want to see it. I made like a little chart. You could follow at Walks Wall Street, but literally the next week, after the Dixie hits 114, Barron's comes out with a huge cover story about how the dollar is going to remain strong well into 2023. And the cover art on the Barron's article, or I should say on the front cover of Barron's, was the US dollar with George Washington as the greenback, flexing his muscles. And I thought to myself, and I think I actually mentioned this on the live stream, I said that is definitely the top in the Dixie, and lo and behold it was. Ever since then, we have been trending significantly lower in the dollar. Today, I think we closed at 102, or maybe we closed at 103 on the Dixie, but we're down 11% since September 28, 2022. That's pretty significant moves in the currency market, and generally speaking, that's been giving a little bit of a helping hand to equities. Because if you remember, during earnings season, almost every single quarter in 2022, what was one of the main common characteristics of all of those earnings reports in relation to the verbiage coming out of the main CEOs of these big publicly traded companies? Well, it was all of the currency risk and the currency fluctuations. Let me just get around this guy. Now, I think Apple, mid-2022, Tim Cook, obviously the CEO of Apple, came out and said that they would have had their all-time highest record revenue quarter ever in company history if it wasn't for a strong dollar. Now, you got to understand, Apple operates in pretty much every single country on the planet. right? Now, I'm being a little bit general when I say that, but when Apple sells their products and services, they have to convert that foreign currency back into US dollars. And if the dollar is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, well, all of that foreign currency buys fewer and fewer US dollars. So it really, really erodes profitability. We're seeing the exact opposite happen this year with the dollar falling, so that may actually provide a little bit of relief. But it's very important as we come up here on Madison Avenue, 42nd Street, to sort of pay attention to these things, because we sort of have, well, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, we sort of have the most important things, or I should say some of the important characteristics to help equities continue higher, right? We have sentiment that is very negative on the economy and on the market, right? We have these major black swan events happening with banks failing, and the market is still staying resilient. We have dollar weakness, and we have rates actually dropping and coming down a little bit. So again, not saying that the market, this is the start of a new bull market. It could be, but I think we need to keep both sides of the equation in check. We need to understand both sides of the bias. Hey, NAV 0407 says a weak dollar helps exports. 45 says great point, Tom. Many Canadian businesses get hurt just from the high US dollar. Yeah, absolutely. Stylish Bunny says, Tom, do you work in Wall Street or on Wall Street? Well, I guess technically now I'm just helping raise money for a hedge fund. But my background is in tech sales, so selling telecom and software to Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies. But now I am helping one of my friends raise money for a second fund. So that's going good. But good to see you. Thank you for joining the live stream. Paul Ledoux says cash is king, question mark. Keith says FYI, 60% of Apple's, oh, missed the comment. 60% of Apple's production capacity is in China. Yeah, who is Apple's main manufacturer? Foxconn, right? And Foxconn, if you want to talk about, well, we won't go too deep into it. We could talk about it for a while. But if you want to talk about very, very harsh working conditions, it's there. I think there has been some reports. Now, I don't know if this is true. I've read about it. This is Grand Central Terminal real quick. But allegedly they had to install nets around some of the factories of Foxconn because the working conditions are so harsh that unfortunately some of the employees were jumping out of the factory. Did anybody else read that? I read that a while ago. Hey, Jeff W277 is back from the run on Russell Street, aka Eastern Market Brewery Run Club. Good to see you. Blues Writer says I actually prefer strong dollar stores to weak dollar stores. Funny. Golden City says another crypto exchange is facing problems. Tom, have you heard about the latest Binance case? It's also political, by the way. I haven't really been following it. Now, the reason why I very seldom follow all of the drama in the crypto exchanges and all that stuff, like the Binance, the FTX, is because I don't really get myself involved with cryptocurrencies besides Bitcoin. I think all of the other, right, and this is my personal opinion, it doesn't mean I'm right, I think the vast majority of the alternative coins out there, besides Bitcoin, are classified as securities. And if that's the case, you could get in trouble for soliciting them or recommending them or even buying them and selling them because they're unlicensed, unregistered securities. And I don't have a background in law, but I mean, it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to interpret securities law in the United States. In my view, right, and many people disagree with me, and that's okay. In my view, based upon the definitions, I think these altcoins are securities. you can't just say because it's a cryptocurrency and you're making it, it doesn't mean that you get a free pass, right? You can't just create something out of thin air and ICO, which is an acronym for initial coin offering instead of IPO, raise funds, right, as a way to raise money to fund a software project, because that's what the vast majority of these altcoins are, right? It's essentially just mini software companies, and say, oh, it's not a security because it's a cryptocurrency. I don't get it. This doesn't make sense to me. So I kind of try to stay away from that. Additionally, in my view, anytime a cryptocurrency exchange has their own specific token, for example, like FTX had, I think they had the FTX coin or something like that. I think Kraken is another one. And Binance, I think they have their own token as well, BNB. I think that's a huge red flag too. So I would personally never keep any money on these things. But that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Doesn't mean I'm right. Just my opinion. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. Click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these streams starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So if you want to join us tomorrow night, feel free to do that too. I'm going to take you guys to Park Avenue, but right now this is the outside of the Yale Club. Very beautiful building right outside of the Grand Central Terminal, right on Vanderbilt Avenue. I think Jeff Bezos frequents here sometimes. Hey, Andrew F. What's up, Andrew? Love the New York Mets logo. Zozo Bob's, Tom, heard about the Florida property insurance hike today, 12% next year and higher for non-homestead properties. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, I'm probably going to, get a little hit over the head with that. So Zozo Bob, the main reason why I'm flying back to Miami on Friday, Saturday morning, I think around 9, I have an inspector coming that was sent by the insurance company, probably just to check things out, and they're probably going to, raise my insurance, which is always a fun time. That's always fun, right? To pay more for things. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm not looking forward to it, but hey, Paranormal Witness Girl. Speaking of Florida, good to see you from Fort Lauderdale. Welcome, welcome. I see Ibrahim Azam. Thank you so much for joining us. Paranormal Witness Girl, what's going on in Fort Lauderdale? I'm sure the insurance is going to go through the roof there as well. Yep, David S. is the result of Hurricane Ian. Exactly. Now, I think this is going to be an issue on a lot of condominiums too. But I don't want to make the whole stream about that. Look at the Hemsley building. 230 Park Avenue. Gorgeous building. Look at the crown moldings here. Look at all the architecture. Really, really cool building. Yeah, NBA Elias is like, at least it's not an IRS agent showing up for an inspection. Yeah, at least not that. Speaking of that, I think 2 weeks ago I finalized all my taxes. That was fun. All right, so this is 230 Park Avenue. We are almost on the main drag here. Hopefully we'll be able to see all the tulips, but take a look at the ceiling here. Really beautiful and really unique. Ibrahim Azam says, good night, I need to go break my fast. That's right, we are now in Ramadan. So Ibrahim Azam, wishing you peace during this time, my friend. Thanks for stopping by, but please go be with your family and enjoy this time, and hopefully this time of year brings you peace. All right, let's cross. Looks like they're actually building a new medium here. You guys see that? If I go up a little bit, you guys can see it. We're about to come up on the brand new JP Morgan Chase building. It should be complete later next year. But this looks like they're building an entirely new medium right outside of the Hemsley building, 230 Park. Hey, Robert, what's up? Robert Sandovar, welcome. Thanks for being here. Dan Zanks, Tom, do you file your own taxes? Do you have an accountant doing that? So I have a CPA. Now, I will say this. Once you make over a certain amount, and especially if you have your own business and you do a lot of contract work in different states, it's so worth it, in my opinion, to find a very, very good CPA that you can trust, but also have them act as like your business advisor and almost as like an associate. It is so worth the money. It's probably the best ROI you could ever have. So I think my CPA is worth every single penny. But this is 270 Park. This is the JP Morgan Chase building. Now they're just starting to put the glass on it, which kind of looks cool. So the facade is going to be, it looks like a matte black sort of color, doesn't it? This is going to look really cool when it's complete. I think they're going to outline the entire thing in matte black. Looks really nice. But yeah, I mean, I would highly, highly advise getting a CPA. I have a very, very good CPA. So, and it saves me a lot of time, right? Especially if you're filing quarterly. Now, my taxes, I do it quarterly. And, you know, I just send all my documents. You know, if I have any rental income that came in, I just send it all to the CPA. So, I don't know. Anybody else here do their own taxes, or do you guys have a CPA? I think it's easier to work with an accountant. Hey, Melissa 2087 says, was using H&R Block. It was horrible. I finally got a real CPA. Yeah, I mean, if your taxes get pretty complex, I think it's worth it. A lot of people try to do it themselves, which I used to always do it myself. But there comes a time where it's just, you know, you should be focusing on building and growing your business, right? And then at some point you need to be delegating things. I think that's probably one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten is when you reach a certain point in your life and in your career, you physically cannot do everything, right? You can't be the jack of all trades because you're going to have significant diminishing returns. You got to start to delegate things. And for me, I was always, because I didn't grow up with a ton of money. You know, money was, you know, tight. I wasn't growing up. I didn't grow up in poverty. You know, I lived in a nice house. You know, I was never worried about food scarcity or anything. But you know, paying for college, things like that, it was, you know, the average middle class struggle. So I was always very reluctant to pay for anything, right? But as I've met a lot of successful people in the business world, they're like, look, you gotta sort of drop that mentality if you want to grow and build and advance in your career. You gotta delegate things. You can't be sitting around, you know, doing your quarterly taxes when, you know, you could be, you know, meeting with other clients. You could be closing more deals. You gotta stop being cheap about it. Delegate the task and focus on growing the top line and doing more deals. So I don't know, that's what I do. Hey Abdullah, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Coffee Girl, I think you probably did the taxes wrong. If that's true, that is a pretty hefty percentage. Oh well, guys, here it is. They're not in bloom yet. I thought they were. I thought somebody said they were. So usually in every intersection on Park Avenue, you have these really, really beautiful flower beds here. And these tulips bloom and they look fantastic. But unfortunately, I don't think they're in bloom yet. Maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. I'd say the second week of April, they'll probably be good. But here's a pretty good look at 432 Park Avenue. This is one of the buildings on Billionaires Row here. Really nice. Hey, the investigator is here. Good to see you, the investigator. Al Bakers is a good CPA, will pay for themselves in the long run. I agree, especially if your taxes are complex. You don't want to screw that up and then get in trouble with the IRS. Zozo Bob's has used a CPA. Friend recommended once, and he screwed it up, gave me a child I didn't have. Wow. Yeah, don't do anything illegal. That's just ridiculous. Don't do that. Definitely don't do that. Oh my God, Zozo Bob. Jeez. How'd you wind up getting out of that one, man? That's insane. Anyway, so guys, lastly, to round it out. So again, we talked about pending home sales today. We did a deep dive in the pending home sales report. Then we talked about some of the technicals in this market. I just want to read off some specific price levels. So again, the NASDAQ today, we closed at 11,926. We closed above the 50-day and 200-day moving average. But let's sort of review where we were this time last year. So if we think about where we were trading at, and this is the New York Palace. This is a 5-star hotel here in Manhattan. Really, really expensive hotel too. I think room rates are $900 a night and up. But this is a gorgeous, gorgeous hotel. Anybody in the chat ever stay here? But anyway, on March 29th, 2022, the NASDAQ Composite was trading at 14,600. So the level we're trading at today is minus 19%. So we're still almost at 19% drawdown on a year-over-year basis, right? To keep this in perspective here, if you look at the S&P 500 today, we closed back above that very important psychological 4,000 level. I always love looking at the Alec Monopoly art here at Eden Fine Art. We closed at 4,027, again, back above the 50 and 200-day moving average. But on March 29, 2022, we were trading at 4,600. So on a year-over-year basis, the S&P 500 is still down about 13%. And to round us out with the Dow Jones Industrial Average, today we closed at 32,717. This time last year, we were trading at 35,300. That is a 8% decline year over year. So that is just to keep things in perspective on where we were this time last year. So still a lot of progress to be made. But again, if you look at the chart of the indice, we've pretty much gone sideways for about the last 6 months. Now, we've been talking a lot about, are we potentially in a new bull market? How would we know? Well, I think there's one major variable, and I actually wrote this down, and I think I've said it before. Now, in my opinion, I find it very, very hard to believe that we could ever be in a new bull market without a significant bull trend in the semiconductor sector as a whole. So here's one of the ETFs that I look at. The ticker symbol is SOXX, and this is the BlackRock iShares Semiconductor Index, or the ETF. We closed at about $434 today, so $434. We're up 26% year to date. This is the front of the New York Palace. You guys remember when we were here during the holidays, how gorgeous they had the holiday set up here? Really amazing. But the reason why I say that it's impossible, in my view, to be in a new bull market without participation from semiconductors is because if you look at the major growth drivers of the economy, it is all going to come from products and services that require a massive amount of chips. If you think about cloud computing, if you think about AI, machine learning, artificial intelligence, AI, so we already sort of said that, and also EVs, right? If you look at the data, there's about 2 times as many chips, okay? So 2 times as many semiconductors. Oh, look at this, they're shooting a movie here, some sort of film. Let me see if there's any signs here that show us what they're filming. Let's see. Can you guys read that? Let me see if it's in focus. We're in production of its 2nd season of Life and Beth. I have no idea what that is, but for those of you who do know what it is, that's what they're filming here. It's called Life and Beth. Interesting. Looks like they're wrapping up. It actually doesn't look like they're filming. Maybe they just finished filming. But maybe they're doing a scene inside St. Patrick's Cathedral, which would be kind of cool. Anyway, so semiconductors historically have been very cyclical in nature, right? And I actually wrote a piece about this in college, and the piece was that semiconductors are going to become less and less cyclical. Now, why would that be? Well, I think technology is going to take over and totally eat the world. I mean, if you think about the major growth drivers of semiconductors, historically it has been mobile phones and different mobile products, right? Like a smartphone, you want to talk about tablets, computers, right? And this is why you saw crazy earnings growth in a lot of these semiconductor companies during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, I was working in tech sales. This is One Berkshire Place, gorgeous in here. I wish I could show you guys the lobby, but this is a gorgeous, gorgeous building on the corner of East 52nd Street. But, you know, I was actually working in tech sales during the pandemic, and the government gave so much money and so much stimulus to a lot of local municipalities and school districts to run a program called Bridging the Digital Divide. And this is just a little anecdotal story for all of you. And the amount of money, okay, that was made by SLED account executives. So for those of you who don't know what that acronym stands for, SLED stands for State Local Government Education. So let's say if you're working as an account executive for a big telecom company or a big software company, it's usually segmented into very specific segments, right? So you could have SMB, which stands for small to medium-sized business. You have mid-market, then you have enterprise, which are like the very large businesses. But then you have SLED. So we were getting some orders for 50,000 Chromebooks for some school districts, 20,000 iPads, all with LTE connectivity. And this was all used with a lot of these COVID funds. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, a lot of this money was misspent or misallocated. I think you could argue probably some of it. I mean, the spending was ridiculous. But you could only wonder why we had a massive global semiconductor shortage. If you have pretty much every school district across the nation ordering literally about 3 years of technology spend condensed into, you know, 5 or 6 months, you know, it's no wonder why you had ridiculous earnings growth in some of these semiconductor companies. So anyway, that's just a little anecdotal story. And a lot of analysts on Wall Street were predicting severe year-over-year earnings declines because of very, very tough comps, right? Well, let me see if I can cross. Yeah, we're good. Because of very tough comps. And a lot of analysts were like, there's no way a lot of these major semiconductor companies would be able to beat the sales records of 2020, 2021, 2022. And we have seen sales declines and earnings declines, but it hasn't been as cyclical as time past because semiconductors are now in every single thing that we use, right? From home appliances to IoTs to medical devices, pretty much every single thing that is manufactured that is connected to the internet or not uses chips. So I don't know. If we think we want to be in a new bull market, I think we need to see continuous strength in semiconductors. And, you know, the SOX, again, ticker symbol SOXX, is up 26% year to date. But what do you guys think? I want to know what you guys think. Here's another good shot of 432 Park Avenue, right outside of the First Republic Bank, which is another bank that is in a little bit of hot water right now. Hey, Line Sync is joining us. Good to see you, Line Sync. Michael Joseph says, Tom, if the S&P 500 holds steady above 4,300 for 2 months and Q1 earnings look good, maybe it'll be the first leg of a bull. Potentially. I mean, 4,000 is a very, very psychological level for sure. Zozo Bobs is a Walks on Wall Street sitcom, has rats that can talk to Tom and ask him for financial advice. I think we should get that pilot program rolling. I would definitely participate in that. Mike MTL says, I fear semis may still be cyclical. So semiconductors are still technically cyclical, but I think they're becoming less and less volatile, I should say, right? Because again, think about what semis used to be. It used to be so heavy focused on smartphones and, you know, pretty much just the smartphone market in and of itself. But now you have so many different things. I mean, think about all the chips that you need for machine learning, for AI, for IoT devices, for medical devices, for remote patient monitoring, for kitchen appliances, for EVs, right? So, I mean, think about, now I think the government really has these pie in the sky, let's say unattainable sales targets for EVs, right? What is the target? They want 90% of all new production by 2030, I think it is, to be EVs. I don't think that's even possible because of the raw materials like the cobalt and things like that. We just can't mine it fast enough, but let's just assume that that's the case. Let's say we hit the target. I mean, that is going to be a mega trend for semiconductors. If we really commit to having 90% of all new vehicles by 2030 be EVs, I mean, again, I always revert back to that statistic. There's 2 times the amount of chips in an EV than a regular vehicle. This is the Trump Tower, by the way. We are now at 5th Avenue. So we came all the way up from 31st Street to 57th Street, Billionaires Row, right here on 5th Avenue. Let's see if we can maneuver around some of this scaffolding. This is going to be a brand new jewelry store. This is Tiffany & Co. They're doing a huge rip and replace to the entire thing. It's going to look really, really nice. And I think on the top floor, there's actually going to be a restaurant. So as you're shopping for, you know, jewelry and other different goods, you can, you know, go up to the top floor and have a nice breakfast or lunch. Hey, Two Wheel Freedom, good to see you. So speaking of EVs, more problems for Lucid Motors, cutting 18% of their workforce. Wow. I didn't hear that. Mike MTL says EVs will freeze out 25% of current car owners. Keith says new Tesla Motors uses 25% less cobalt than current generation. Well, that's good news because they're a horror show. I think everybody really knows about this. And I think there was actually a really good book. It may have been actually recommended by Zozo Bob in the chat. of just the really harsh and horrible conditions in a lot of these cobalt mines over the world. Let's cross 57th Street here at the Louis Vuitton store. And I think from here you guys will be able to see the restaurant. You see this sort of like a big atrium at the top. You probably have amazing views of Central Park. That is going to be the restaurant that sits on top of Tiffany & Co. That's going to be really, really cool. Maybe when it opens up, I'll be able to get some footage in there for you guys. Hey, Psychic Cosmonauts. As Tom is a car enthusiast, I really don't think I'll ever switch to an EV. Most of my friends too. Car community is massive. I don't think government's prediction or target is realistic. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that the target is unrealistic. That I do agree with you. And I don't agree that we should outlaw... Oh, I think the sidewalk's closed. We got to go around. And I don't think people should be forced to convert, right? I don't think we should do forced conversions. I'm definitely against that. Hey, Dr. Longus, thank you for joining us. Says, hey, Tom and team, what's up? Thanks for being here. Just wait for the cars to go by. I've noticed a lot more traffic. I mean, I've noticed a lot more construction in the city as of late, which I think is a good thing because the roads are really in need of repair. They just recently paved all of 34th Street, which is really nice. Across the way here, you'll see the Sherry Netherland, which is a very famous hotel. We always think about Jesse Livermore. But right across the street is the main flagship Apple store, and Apple just came out with a huge announcement yesterday, which we talked about in depth, by the way. They're coming out with their Apple Pay Later, which I think is going to decimate a lot of the buy now, pay later companies, such as Affirm. I think once Apple reported that news, that they're coming out with their Apple Pay Later, I think Affirm was down like 7% just based on the news alone. And here's the Plaza Hotel. Hey, Atlas says, hey, my friend works at that store you just walked past, the Bergdorf Goodman. That's a really expensive store, really, really high class, upscale, really nice on the inside. The Cell Texas construction season has started. Will M says, Apple getting into microloans. Yeah, I mean, they announced it. There was a big announcement. Tim Cook announced it yesterday. And I think that is going to be very bearish for the pure play buy now, pay later companies, to say the least. Yeah, Renee makes a good point. So sometimes in summer we already don't have enough electricity here in California, so I would worry about that with EVs. Well, I think the main thing in my opinion is that we need to be able to have the infrastructure in place first. And I'm talking about the battery technology to harness all of the renewable energy. This is a nice shot of Billionaires Row. You see the Steinway building right here. Because it's not going to be sunny all the time. It's not going to be windy all the time. So I think we need to have a very robust infrastructure to be able to harness the energy that is produced with wind and solar, so we could store that energy to use at a later date, at a later time. And I think that's coming. Look at that Tesla. I'm not sure I'd ever get a Tesla in this color. What do you guys think? I don't know about that. Yes, Forever 18 says, Tom, many technologies or e-commerce companies will ultimately get into the banking business. Maybe. I think Apple has the risk tolerance to be able to do that because they have a ridiculous cash balance and they have already the user base, right? I mean, think about how many people have an iPhone in their hand. So you don't need to do any marketing for it. You could literally just send people a push notification to use the service. So I think they're going to crush the competition. I think it's going to turn into a big monopoly, I think. Yeah, Stylish Bunny says red. We'll get you higher car insurance. Yeah, don't red vehicles get pulled over like 2 times the amount of other color? Now there's a really good coffee shop that actually opened up across the street here. I want to show you guys. It's called Sip Plus Co. or Sip and Co. This is a really good spot. I was actually with a client the other day. It's on 58th Street. I think the exact address is 41 West 58th. It's actually really good. That guy almost got hit by a taxi cab. Good thing I didn't get that on camera. Because the thing is, the outdoor dining units, you see them? They make the streets so narrow. So when the cars go by at the same time as the bikes, like sandwiches the bikers right up against the outdoor dining sheds. All right, let's head downtown now, since we have the light. Hey, Dave S. says Toyota is moving into hydrogen tech. Well, I think Toyota, or was it, is it a Toyota or is it a Honda that I think 3 or 4 years ago came out with the fully hydrogen vehicle? Now, I don't know if that's going to be efficient to be able to do at scale, because we need to start building hydrogen stations. Now, I'm not sure how many gas stations have hydrogen pumps. Hey, Jonathan Richards says red cars in North Carolina doesn't cost more insurance, not in my state. That's a myth. I'm an insurance agent. Oh, really? Wow. That's hilarious. Jonathan, good to see you though, my friend. Will M says it's Honda. I believe the infrastructure isn't there outside of certain parts of California. I think Canada may be big on that. I was watching a YouTube review of a hydrogen vehicle, and I think it was in Ontario, I think, or Ottawa. It may have been Ottawa, but I think it was Ottawa, Canada. Now, in the video, the guy said I could never drive this into the United States because the range, if you do the calculation of the range, there's no hydrogen stations that would be able to get me to the range to go drive my car to the United States. So I think it's a big infrastructure problem, you know, to have hydrogen vehicles at scale. I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert on it, but I think just in and of itself, it's an infrastructure nightmare, a headache. Hey, Ryan Royal. Thanks for joining us on this chilly Wednesday night. You can see the Hilton Club. This is actually the flagship Hilton Club here. Oh, guys, I think the only other thing we need to talk about today is junk bonds. So we can usually use junk bonds as a gauge for risk appetite in the market. So I want everybody to take a look at ticker symbol JNK. Now, I usually use this as just a benchmark of, how junk bonds are doing. And junk bonds have actually been catching a bid, and if you've noticed over the past couple months, we have essentially stopped this major sell-off in junk bonds, and we've actually started to go sideways a bit. So if you go to a monthly time frame, and for those of you who don't know, ticker symbol JNK is the Bloomberg High Yield Bond Index, or you could just call it junk. High yield bonds tend to be non-investment grade, so non-investment grade means junk. So the theory there, for those of you who may be unfamiliar, is the higher the risk of the bond, investors are going to command a higher yield to compensate for their risk, right? Makes sense? So if you're thinking about a corporate bond like Apple corporate bonds, there's probably not going to be super high yield because Apple is a very high credit worthiness of a company. So JNK closed, I think, in 91 today. But on March 29th, 2022, so a year ago today, junk was trading at 103. And we had this huge cascade effect, this huge waterfall sell-off in junk bonds. And now we've sort of gone sideways, and the market's actually trying to catch a little bit of a bid, which I guess we could use as risk appetite. So we're getting junk bonds catching a bid. We have the dollar, down to flat. We have crude oil, I think, trading at what, $70? I think we've now broken above $70. So generally speaking, all of these things should help the equity market. So I don't know, keep your eyes on the junk bond market. Usually the junk moves first. So sometimes we could use junk bonds as a leading indicator. Not all the time, but sometimes. This is the famous halal guys cart. Now, I remember when the lines here used to be ridiculous. It used to be 40-minute, 50-minute lines. Now, it seems the majority of people actually go to Adele's Famous as opposed to the main halal guys. And I think Adele's is a better spot anyway. Yeah, Michael Joseph says REITs have also been catching bids, which is, again, how contrarian is that? You would think quite the opposite, which is a little wild. You would think the exact opposite, but hey, sunshine after rain, good to see you. I noticed that, and I think I said this yesterday, whatever reason it is, during the day in Manhattan, it's really not that really hard today. You can maybe you guys can't tell because I have the microphone on. But if you look at the American flags in the distance, right at Radio City Music Hall, you can see them blowing about. NATO 42 is here, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I really love walking down 6th Avenue because these buildings all look similar. It's like almost like they're the same exact design. Hey, Irish Toker is here. Good to see you. Long time no see. We're outside of UBS now. UBS just acquired Credit Suisse for $3.2 billion. Their headquarters here in Manhattan is 51st and 6th. I think Mizuho, which is a Japanese investment bank, is also in that building too. I think on the westernmost side. Oh, this is a really good shot here. Look at this. We're right under Radio City Music Hall. Dusty Cole, good to see you, sir. Troy Atman, just 10 out of 10. I think we may start to buffer here. I think we were buffering yesterday. Look at this group of tourists here. Wow. I think we're good to cross now. Man, it's 45 degrees. I just read on that thing. It feels cold. It's getting freezing. But guys, we're coming up right on the 2-hour mark. I think we covered a lot on today's live stream. We covered pending home sales. We covered some technicals in the major equity indices. We covered the dollar. We covered semiconductors, and we talked a little bit about junk bonds. Now, we will be back streaming live tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. New York time. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be streaming from Lower Manhattan. We'll take a walk down Wall Street. We'll take a look at the South Ferry terminal, which is where you can get the Staten Island ferry. So hopefully, if we have time, we'll be in Lower Manhattan tomorrow. If you guys enjoyed the live stream, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. Share the show with your friends. Oh, and lastly, I finally have the Substack link up. So let me know if that works for you guys. So as you know, we've taken a very, very, very long hiatus, almost about a year, of the newsletter. So I finally have everything up again. So I think if you type !news or look in the description of this video, you'll see the Substack link to the Behind the Street newsletter. So from now on, all of the newsletters will be sent out and uploaded to Substack. As you know, ever since Elon Musk took over Twitter, Review, which is the newsletter service that we were currently on, is now no longer. They disbanded the company. So we finally now have a Substack page. So if you want to connect with us on there, please do. And if you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can follow @WalksWallStreet. But I'm going to head home now, guys. Enjoy your Wednesday night. Make sure you get after it tomorrow, and we'll see you at 8:30. So Golden City, Austin City Limits, David S. Solo Flyer, Troy Atman, appreciated Dusty Cole, Sunshine After Rain, Sabrina Fair, Joseph Hardaway, Steph UH, Joe Driver, Steve CR, Will M. Line Sync, NBA Elias, Into the Mighty Bull. Have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. Hawaii, I'll see you later. Karina Thompson, everybody, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.